Welcome to the Explainer. So today we're getting into something literally every angler deals with, but rarely understands at a chemical level. We're talking about the terminal interface. Basically that critical, tiny point of connection between you and your absolute dream catch. We're going to break down the actual molecular engineering behind monofilament, fluorocarbon, and braided fishing lines. Look, just last weekend, a good friend of mine, a pretty big skeptic, honestly, was out on the water. He hooked into an absolute monster, drag screaming, heart literally pounding out of his chest, and then, snap, gone. He was so frustrated, complaining about how he got ripped off by cheap lines, and man, we have all been there, right? That broken line heartbreak is the absolute worst. But it got me thinking, why did that line really snap? Was it just a bad nut, a nick on a rock, or was it actually a fundamental structural failure at the molecular level? Let's figure it out. Okay, let's dive into this. Here is our roadmap for today. 1. The molecular battleground. 2. Mono, the forgiving veteran. 3. Fluoro, the invisible armor. 4. Braid, zero stretch muscle. And 5. Matching molecule to mission.
Section 1. The molecular battleground. Let's look at the science.
When we're at the tackle shop, we're totally bombarded with marketing buzzwords like super braid or 100% fluorocarbon. But, these aren't just simple plastic strings. They are hardcore, lab-engineered chemical polymers. Fluorocarbon is actually polyvinylene fluoride, or PVDF for short. And braid, that's ultra-high molecular weight polyethylene, or UHMWPE. Oh, and here's a massive industry secret for you. A lot of those crazy expensive high-end brands, they actually source their raw materials from the exact same place, the Weihai industrial cluster in China. The real difference between a good line and a bad one isn't magic. It comes down to the weaving density and the coating. And the physical arrangement of these molecules totally dictates how your bait is going to behave. Take specific gravity, for example. Fluorocarbon molecules are packed in super tight. They're dense, with a specific gravity of around 1.78 to 1.90. What does that mean for you? It means it sinks incredibly fast, and water literally cannot penetrate it. On the flip side, PE braid is so unbelievably light, just 0.97, that it naturally floats right on top of the water. Section 2, Mono, the forgiving veteran, the classic nylon line. All right, think of nylon monofilament like a giant, bouncy spring. Its defining superpower is elasticity. It can actually stretch a massive 25 to 35% before breaking. This makes it an amazing shock absorber. If you absolutely smash a hook set or a fish goes wild with sudden head shakes, mono just stretches and completely forgives those impacts. Plus, it seats beautifully, giving you close to 100% knot efficiency. But as we're going to see, it's definitely not invincible, especially out in the elements. Actually, here's a crazy detail that shocks almost everyone. Nylon literally changes its physical structure when it gets wet. It acts like a sponge, absorbing up to 10% of its own weight in water. Now, this swelling makes the line way softer and easier to cast, which feels great, but it fundamentally weakens the polymer bonds inside. You end up losing about 10 to 15% of its tensile strength just by getting it submerged. So if you really want to know what your mono can handle, you got to test it wet. And honestly, water isn't even the worst thing attacking your mono. Time for a quick mythbuster. The sun's UV rays are absolutely brutal on nylon. They can kill its strength by 20% in just 100 hours of exposure. But wait, it gets worse. The chemicals on your own hands are destroying your line. The oxybenzone in your everyday sunscreen, the DEET in your bug spray, they literally penetrate and chemically melt the line's polymer structure. Seriously, wipe your hands off before you tie your knots. Section 3, Fluoro, the invisible armor, the stealth material. Now, the concept of refractive index brilliantly illustrates exactly why fluorocarbon is hyped up as being practically invisible underwater. It's all about how light bends when it passes through material. Water sits at an index of 1.33. Fluorocarbon is right there at 1.42, which is way closer than nylon's 1.58. Because that index matches water so perfectly, light just passes straight through the fluoro with barely any reflection or distortion. It's literal optical stealth down there. But there's a huge catch with fluorocarbon. You know how nylon stretches and then bounces right back to its original shape, like a rubber band? That's elastic deformation. Well, fluorocarbon goes through plastic deformation, meaning if you get a nasty snag or a giant fish stretches your fluoro past its absolute limit, it stays permanently stretched. Its molecular structure is fundamentally ruined at that point. So if you don't cut off that weakened section and retie, you are basically begging for it to snap on the next cast. Let's zoom in even closer under the microscope. Because fluoro is so incredibly dense and hard, it's pretty brittle. Imagine you get a bad spool overrun on a baitcaster and your line gets a sharp kink in it. You have just created a microscopic fracture deep inside the line. It's exactly like scoring a pane of glass before snapping it. Those little microcracks act as internal stress concentrators. The line might look totally fine to your naked eye, but the very next time you put tension on it, that crack violently propagates and boom, instant failure. Section 4, Braid. Zero stretch muscle. The heavy lifter. Braided line is basically an engineering marvel born from a wild process called gel spinning. Manufacturers take those UHMWP polymers we talked about earlier, dissolve them, and then forcefully pull them out. This aligns all the polymer chains perfectly in one direction, creating a synthetic fiber that literally possesses a strength-to-weight ratio significantly higher than steel. Absolutely mind-blowing stuff. And because braid is woven from multiple tiny individual strands, usually anywhere from 4 to 16 of them, it behaves much more like a textile. The crazy thing here is the stretch, or rather, the lack of it. It has near zero stretch, usually maxing out at just 3 to 5%. This complete lack of elasticity is exactly why PE line gives you unmatched lightning-fast sensitivity. You can literally feel the tiniest tick of a bite way out in deep water. Plus, it totally ignores UV rays and water absorption. The main downside? It's highly opaque, meaning the fish can definitely see it. So the crucial point to understand is braid's unique relationship with abrasion. Because it's super thin and strong, it acts almost like a microscopic saw. It will slice effortlessly right through thick, soft aquatic weeds like grass or lily pads. But, and this is absolutely vital, because it's just a bunch of microfilaments woven together, it is incredibly vulnerable to hard, sharp surfaces. If a fish drags your zero-stretch PE line across a jagged rock or a patch of barnacles, those individual fibers will instantly fray and cut right through one by one. It's a disaster waiting to happen. Which brings us to our final part, Section 5, Matching Molecule to Mission.
Let's put all this science into a tactical game plan. If you're fishing topwater where you expect brutal, high-speed strikes, nylon mono is your absolute best bet because that stretch absorbs the massive shock. In ultra-clear water dragging baits over jagged rocks, fluorocarbon is your invisible, hard-surfaced armor. But if you're probing deep water or hauling fish out of heavy, soft vegetation, PE braid gives you the raw, zero-stretch sensitivity and cutting power you need.
But before we wrap up, I want you to remember this number, 50. You see, my name is Coriander, and I've actually gone through the trouble of tracking down the most reliable PE and carbon lines directly from those Weihai factories we talked about earlier. I handpicked ones with the absolute best weaving densities and coatings, and made them available right now on Dara's global shipping specifically for Sri Lankan anglers so we can finally avoid that terrible broken line heartbreak. But look, even with the most perfectly engineered gel-spun line in the world, a badly tied knot can reduce your breaking strength by up to 50%. Friction, heat, and pore seeding will shred these polymers faster than any fish ever could. The science of the line is only as good as the science of your knot.
The ancient philosopher Lao Tzu famously said, "Teach a man to fish and you feed him for a lifetime." Well, today, teaching someone to fish doesn't just mean showing them where to cast. It means truly understanding your gear. When you know exactly why nylon absorbs water, or why your buddy's cheap fluorocarbon fractured, you stop relying on pure luck. You start leveraging physics and real polymer engineering.
So I'll leave you with this to chew on. Every single time you make a cast, you are literally testing a microscopic synthetic polymer against the violent, unpredictable power of a wild animal. Is that single strand of material the ultimate intersection between modern science and wild, untamed nature? We honestly think so. Thank you so much for joining us on this explainer. Keep those knots lubricated, watch out for those microcracks, and we'll see you next time.